Serious. What's the most traumatizing thing you experienced as a child? Attention. Serious. Tag notice, jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. I was about 7 or 8 when I heard some noise coming from the garage. My mom was at work and I was being babysat by one of my uncles. I went to open the garage to find my other uncle strangling his girlfriend up against the car. She had blood coming out of her nose and mouth. I just froze and stood there staring, and my uncle didn't even notice and continued choking and strangling her. My other uncle came to the door where I was standing, saw what was happening and grabbed me. He called my mom and then the police, who later came and arrested my uncle. There's more to this story I wasn't privy to at such a young age, but yeah, my other uncle is crazy. He's been to jail a few times, has anger and control issues. Watching my grandpa slowly waste away on our living room couch. He had a paraganglioma on his pancreas, and there was nothing, especially in 1980, that could be done for him. I was 4, and he was my favorite person, and I couldn't sit with him, or hug him, or anything. I miss him even after 40 years. Either that or my best friend dying over Christmas break in 1988. I miss her too. I pretty much hated everything after that. And you probably had every right to be angry. It's a natural response. My grandpa had Alzheimer's and was also wasting away. It was not nearly as bad a situation as some, but I can kind of relate. It was both fortunate and unfortunate that I didn't know him too well before he was sick. I was at an age where it was too cool to keep up with family and such. Down the road, it didn't hurt as much when he died. But it is definitely a repressed emotion because I regret not getting to know him as well. If I have any, my future kids and grandkids will never really know what he was like. Because I didn't really know either. I was stalked by a mentally handicapped man that lived in our neighborhood when I was 10 years old. He was a fully grown man, probably in his 30s or something, but he had the mental capacity of a young child. He didn't drive car or anything and didn't have a job, and he lived in the neighborhood with his parents. Our neighborhood had a very large park in it. There were a few different playground areas and picnic areas, and then a half-dozen baseball diamonds where the city's little league played all its games. He was a staple in the area in the summers, where he was usually in the park watching baseball games or watching people play basketball. He was very friendly, and the little league kids knew his name and would say hello when they saw him. I'm sure there were some kids who teased him, but the general tone was people were nice. At least that's how I remember it. And for a few years I just knew him that way, but for some reason he seemed to fixate on me. But I was at the park playground with my brother and he approached us and we talked to him. He tried hugging me and then he put his hand on my crotch and pinched my butt. My brother, who was a few years older than me, pulled me away and told him to stop doing that and leave us alone. We took off for home and he chased us but didn't catch us before we got home. We went into our house and locked the doors, but he stood outside yelling my name to come out and see him. A neighbor came over and made him leave and made sure we were all right. Things sort of escalated after that, in that my brother and I saw him all the time, and we found him waiting up the street from our house waiting for us to come outside after our parents left for work. If he saw me riding my bike or walking down the street, he would follow me. It was very unsettling. We told my parents, who went and spoke to his parents. They were very apologetic but didn't really do anything other than tell him to leave me alone. The worst thing that happened was when my mom off work at home with me and my brother while my dad was working, and he came to our house and let himself in the unlocked front door and starting yelling my name, saying he wanted to play with me. My mom freaked out and tried to push him outside, but he was a full-grown man and my mom is 5 feet 0 inches and like 100 pounds. She called the police while locking my brother, me, and her in her bedroom. The police came and hauled him away. His parents put their house on the market and they moved away shortly after. I didn't know this at the time, but my dad said that he and my mom agreed to drop any charges against him as long as they promised to move away. I had a really normal, loving childhood except for that traumatic event. I had a friend I used to sleep over at a lot in middle school. There was a man who was mentally disabled that would hang out behind a grocery store right behind his house. Whenever he saw us leave the house, he would pull his dick out and wave it at us and try to get us to come over by him. We told my friend's parents, who called the police, and we gave them multiple statements only to be told he was harmless and we should avoid going to that area, even though it was a few hundred feet away, and even if we took the other street he would still watch for us to leave my friend's house and call to us. Eventually my friend moved across town and we just forgot about it until a few years later we saw a news article about the guy molesting and beating an 8-year-old boy in the same area. I crawled through the window at my cousin's house in Kentucky after a week of not being able to reach him by phone at all. Me and my mom went up to his house to check on him. I had to climb through the window because we knew he was home and I was small enough to get through pretty easily. I was 16 at the time when this happened. So after getting into the house it was obvious very quickly something was off due to the smell. I walked through the house till I came upon his bedroom where he had put a .357 in his mouth and done the deed sitting on the edge of his bed. I still have moments to this day, almost 20 octoseconds later, where I smelled that same smell, and at times I wake up from terrible nightmares of walking in on it right after, or walking in and him sitting up asking me why headless. This is something I still have issues with. I apologize that this was so long and very dark. I kept this as detail-free as possible and still convey what happened. I made a previous post, but I have a follow-up traumatic event as well. My dad died before my second birthday while being held up at a gas station robbery. My mom told me he was shot in the head when I was 8 years old. This was also the first time I found out my current dad wasn't my really dad. When I was in 6th grade, my mom showed me the suitcase that contained a few of my real dad's old belongings, such as letters, his clothes, eyeglasses, etc. She then showed me an envelope which had pictures from my dad's death, crime scene. She actually showed me the photos of my dad shot in the head, brains blown out and everything as a 6th grader. When I was really little, my dad accused me of something, which I denied. Then he beat me until I told him what he wanted to hear. Then, because I changed my story, he hit me some more for lying. Then Mom got home and he told her that he caught me lying so she should never trust me again. She took that order seriously, which led to many more beatings down the road. I don't remember what the thing he accused me of was. I may not even have understood it at the time, because of the rule, though. I remember that day. When I was really little, my dad accused me of something, which I denied. Then he beat me until I told him what he wanted to hear. Then, because I changed my story, he hit me some more for lying. Then Mom got home and he told her that he caught me lying so she should never trust me again. She took that order seriously, which led to many more beatings down the road. Wow. Great job, parents. I understand not wanting your kid to lie. I get it, but if I'm telling the truth and I am still being accused of something, I'm going to lie to get out of the situation. My mom was helping me with my homework in kindergarten. I needed to identify letters. Eventually we got to a lowercase a which I couldn't identify, because in that typeface lowercase a is different from how I had been taught to write that letter. My mother must have had a bad day, or maybe she really didn't like helping me. Rather than correcting me, she just repeated told me to identify the letter, and she got more and more frustrated as I failed to answer correctly. She began screaming at me, saying that I was being stupid on purpose and that she wouldn't accept that one of her children could be this dumb. Eventually she grabbed me by the neck and choked me as she slammed me into the wall and continued screaming at me. Things started going black, but she released me before I lost consciousness and I collapsed to the ground. She yelled at me more and pinched my ear hard, pulling me up by the ear and forcing me back into the chair. She told me to finish my homework by myself and left. I didn't ask her for help on my homework again. Unfortunately, the work my school gave me in elementary school pretty much required adult supervision, so I just do as much as I could and lie if my mom asked. This of course made my grades suffer. My grades recovered around grade 7, because I had taught myself to study and didn't need adult help. She choked me like that on several occasions, because she really didn't need a reason to be violent. At some point I realized that she never touched my brothers. She stopped once I had grown to be taller than her at around the age of 13. Then if she was angry she'd scream at me, and threatened to call the police and tell them that I attacked her. My mom did something similar a lot. Unfortunately, not choking but other stuff. I have ADHD, which went undiagnosed until adulthood but undeniably made it difficult to learn and complete homework. She was frustrated by not being able to figure out my 3rd grade fractions homework, and when I told her answer was wrong but I figured it out she lost it, started screaming about how I don't understand a fucking thing, how I'm useless, how I'll never amount to anything, how I'm a burden, how I think I'm so much better than her, etc., eventually escalating to her choosing to throw a pen set, my favorite pens, and she knew that, so hard at me that they broke and I was left bruised. She doesn't remember this though, how convenient. She made me clean up the broken bits of my favorite pens as I cried because I figured out an answer and she couldn't. Yes, it still haunts me. No, it wasn't the last time she threw a treasured possession at me, hurled abuse, and made her sobbing child clean it up. Now, her abuse of choice is verbal and emotional entirely. Maybe because she knows I'm grown enough to fight back or fuck her stuff up in return. That or I'll call the cops now. I'm so sorry that we didn't get the nurturing we deserved. 3. I hope you have love enough elsewhere to make the pain easier to hold. My mom was born at 7 months and the doc said her spine might have some issues, and when she was a young girl of around 12 there was an accident of a tree falling on her, which causes her vertebrae in the lower back to dislocate. I don't know the medical diagnosis, but the important thing is that it could only be fixed with surgery that she never had. When she got pregnant with me, all the doctors told her to abort me because the pregnancy and birth had a big probability of paralyzing her, but she ended up having me anyways. Due to her decision, her medical issues became way worse. She was bedridden for months after having me, and until I was around 5-6, she could only walk around by crawling on all fours, all the while crying in immense pain. I always stood by her side as a toddler, helped her get back to bed, comforting her when she was crying, but in her pain-induced delusions she'd always tell me that she's dying and would tell me what to do once she dies. This caused a lot of stress for me, and I'd hide and cry and pray that mommy doesn't die. Tried my best to please her as much as I could so she wouldn't die. This lasted for years. But by then I was heavily affected by it all, and my fear of mom dying transformed into paranoia. I didn't know what a dream was until I was 13-14. I always had nightmares of horrible monsters killing me, making me watch as they killed my family in gruesome ways. Once I learned about sex, they've turned sexual as well, but it was horrible. I'd have issues falling asleep, trying to go to sleep for 3-4 hours, but I couldn't fall asleep because of the fear that something was inside our house, and that any small movement I'd make would cause them to kill all of us. I'd wake up from terror several times in the night. I was afraid of being alone because I thought I'd die, or my family will die if they were away from me. Afraid of going to the bathroom. Years later my doctor told me I'm at a big risk of having kidney stones because I was holding it in for too long, afraid of entering the apartment building, etc. It also made me obsessed with pleasing everyone. I truly believed that if I didn't tell mom I lived her every 5 minutes, or if I didn't touch her often enough, she'd hate me because that would have been proof I didn't love her. Unfortunately, despite all the red flags, in my younger years mental health was badly ignored unless you were a severe case, so they noticed I wasn't behaving normally but did nothing about it and didn't try to help me until my suicide attempt at 17. Sorry if I made any spelling mistakes. Probably my parents' breakup, I was playing Peggle on my dad's computer and my mom was coming back from the store. I don't know why this happened really, but when my mom got home I ran to open the door and she threw a Coke can at my head and it busted. Then my dad and mom yelled at each other for a while and they went to fight in the bedroom. I remember seeing my dad slam her against the bed and choke her till she turned red, and eventually my grandma yelling in the background convinced him to stop. My mom got in her car and floored it down the road running into mailboxes and things. I remember crying for a long time in the bathroom, and then my mom came back a few hours later and demanded that I go with her. I don't remember the next few years after this. I posted this on another thread already, but I guess I'll also post here cuz why not? This one might get a little disturbing. I was a person who went missing when I was about 6 years old for about 2 weeks. I don't remember much of it, but I know it definitely happened as I have scars from it, but I can't remember what exactly happened. I was taken by my cousin and held for 2 weeks before my parents found me. Those entire 2 weeks were one big blur. According to my parents, they said I had many slash wounds, cuts, bruises, and burns, and the police had found evidence of me also being sexually assaulted. I remember being told it happened, but not really remembering any details all through my childhood and in my teens. But I also had a lot of problems with new people and started being scared of adults and anyone new, which I have been taking therapy for ever since my parents found me, and I have gotten better. Right now I only have bits and pieces of what happened, but I don't remember many things and don't remember the chronological order in which things happened. I also remember being scared to talk about it at school and with teachers since I was a boy and was afraid they'd tell me I was a failure or something, or that I had to man up. I got that man up line a lot in my teens for my bisexuality and for being scared to do things, and I felt that admitting to my abuse to people would force me to lose a lot of good friends I had then. I also have a lot of separation issues, to the point at which I couldn't go to public places without someone I trust with me. Now it's at a point where I can do basic things like shop for myself and stuff, but I can't go to a party or something without at least one person I know really well, even if it's a small thing with 5 people there. Here are some of the pieces I have put together that won't completely blow my identity. I remember sitting in a bathtub while bleeding and having someone, not my cousin, yell at me and touch my testicles. I also remember being attacked and bitten by a dog while my cousin and this other abuser, the same person from before, watched. I also remember being hit with a belt until I bled and having had my feet pressed against hot coal. It's only things like that I remember, and they are not in order, and I've recently tried to call the police to investigate the other abuser I had mentioned and possibly take them into custody. I am really so sorry you went through that trauma, but I'm so glad you're in therapy and getting help for it. I'm 30, and a few years ago when the scandal with the gymnastics doctor broke, a repressed memory of sexual assault hit me like a ton of bricks one day. I was reading an article that was quoting some of the women who were his victims, and a bunch of them stated how they were told what was being done to them was treatment. I read it while at the airport with my now husband and just went into shock. I turned ghost whiter and literally couldn't speak for about a good hour or so. He was very concerned about WTF was going on, and the only thing I could say was that I would talk about it later. And even then, it took me a good month or so to be able to tell him about this repressed trauma that was triggered. It all comes back to me in mere flashes, but thinking about it makes me feel ill. My body physically just feels repulsed. I know I need to probably see a therapist about it, and other life traumas, but I just haven't had the courage to yet. So just know the healing and processing you are doing is incredible, and you're so fucking brave. I hope your future is bright. I know the darkness is behind. Breathe when times get tough, but smile when times are not. I really am sorry this happened to you. I hope the therapy works out. I know many people that won't treat you like shit if you share your story, but it is hard to share without the confidence behind it. If you find someone that has other friends with traumatic stories, you will find them accepting, no doubt. I have several friends that have stories either similar to this or just traumatic enough to cause issues, so I am one of those people that listens and accepts. Good luck, friend, and please keep getting better.